whenever I'm having a conversation with my mom about the state of the world and there's crazy things going on, she always says, as the ancient Chinese curse goes, may you live in interesting times. And we are, in fact, living in very interesting times. Donald Trump just announced, well, previously it had been tariffs against Canada and Mexico and China. Now those tariffs are essentially against the world. You know, it's like the United States has picked a fight with the entire planet. Now, if you're in favor of what Trump is doing, you would rephrase that. You wouldn't say he picked a fight. You would say he is making America great again, and he's stopping all these freeloading countries taking advantage of us. And it turns out that from the American point of view, at least from Trump's point of view, the freeloading countries were pretty much everyone. Now, I'm not an economist, and I promise this whole channel is not going to become about tariff analysis and stuff like that. But the day after this giant, really once in a lifetime announcement of tariffs, they're saying this hasn't been done for generations. And as I make this video, the stock markets are tumbling. Everyone is freaking out, trying to figure out what this means. I'm sure a million different companies around the world are all thinking about the parts that they need to import or export from the United States, how this is going to affect their bottom line, how this is going to affect their pricing. Will things like computers and cameras and everything that we use in our day-to-day life that gets imported from far away, will the prices suddenly rise? We don't know. A lot to be seen. But what is clear is that what started as just the United States against Canada and a couple of others has kind of shifted to the United States against the world. And I want to share a couple thoughts on this. The first thing I noticed, I was on Reddit yesterday, right after the tariffs had been announced. I don't know if you guys use Reddit, but sometimes it will randomly suggest you things from communities that you don't usually follow. And I got recommended this post from Reddit India. So it was an Indian community, and they were talking about what can we do about these tariffs. And one of the top comments was saying, well, we have to do what the Canadians are doing. Stop buying American. And first of all, it made me feel a bit proud of oh yeah, look at that. Even the Indians know what we're doing in Canada. We're a story even in India, And secondly, it just reinforced this idea of, okay, this is much bigger than just us and our dispute with the United States right now, which has been going on for a couple of months. As of yesterday, when this massive tariff rollout was announced, it feels like it's the U.S. against the world. People were talking about how, for example, in Asia, we now have new partnerships between China and Japan and South Korea, 3 countries that traditionally really don't get along, are now making trade deals. And so the United States, Trump specifically, has kind of forced traditional enemies to work together against the new common enemy of the United States. And if you're an American, you might not want to hear that, but when you hit people financially, it kind of feels different. I will say, as a Canadian, I feel some relief. It's not that I want other people to be suffering, but it's kind of like we were in a sinking ship and we were almost alone, right? Imagine, what's a metaphor I can use? Imagine that we're all on lifeboats, and then one of the little lifeboats is sinking and you're alone and everyone else's boat is okay. But then suddenly there's 100 other people in the boat with you. Now, you don't feel better that your boat is sinking, but at least you're okay, now we're not alone in this disaster. There's other people who can help us solve this problem. The entire world can help us solve this leak. I guess it's kind of a silly metaphor because maybe maybe if the boat actually does go down, you'll just all be like clawing at each other and like drowning each other as you fight to survive. That is one potential outcome for this tariff war. All the countries that are now hurting more economically will be clawing at each other and pushing each other underwater and trying to survive. Or maybe together we can figure out a way to stop this leak. You know, maybe a couple of years from now, a lot of people like me will have egg on our face because we will look stupid if the United States actually pulls us off. And 2 or 3 years in the future, the United States' economy is booming and the rest of the world is struggling. A lot of people like myself will have to admit that we were short-sighted. That is a possible outcome. You never know which way this will go. And if that does happen, I will admit it. But I just don't think it's going to happen. I think there are Americans who might believe that narrative. I think it is true that this will lead to some new factories and some new manufacturing in the United States. This will lead to... This is where it gets nuanced because I do think that even as Canadians, like there is a benefit to being more self-reliant, right? I'm not saying that there isn't some overarching idea here that is correct. Like the overarching idea of actually when we have a catastrophe, like look at what happened with the pandemic 5 years ago, when suddenly the whole world is relying on places like China to produce everything, and then suddenly the whole world needs protective masks and medical equipment, and it's all coming from China. So China can easily provide all of its citizens with masks and like other protective equipment and lock down the whole country, and China's fine. But meanwhile, in, you know, supposedly very rich and prosperous Western countries, we can't get those same supplies because all of the, because all of the factories and the supply chains have been stopped by people who are staying home. But also because of political stuff. Like if China's angry at the US or Canada, they can just cut it off. So politics comes into play too. So like clearly from a national security point of view, there are benefits to having things built at home. And also just economically, like if you are creating jobs at home, that's a good thing. It would be cool. As a Canadian, it would be cool if I could buy a car or buy a phone or buy a camera that's made entirely in Canada, but we don't have that. We don't have that ability. And so the overarching idea of building things is good, but the idea of suddenly like just knocking over the whole world's financial system to get that done feels like, on the one hand, you know, as I said, there is a possibility it works out in the end, but it seems like there's a much larger possibility that everything just gets worse for average consumers for a long, long time. And maybe Trump and his billionaire friends will, you know, find some new way to profit off this. I don't really know how it works, but can't Trump just tell his friends what changes are coming just before he announces it? And so if you have giant tariffs coming that's going to tank the stock market, can't he just tell all his friends to sell right before that? And then if he's going to remove all the tariffs 3 months from now, a week before that, can't he just tell his friends and then they all buy again? Like, is the world really that corrupt that we're all just playing from a different rule book than the elites, as you put it? And I'm not trying to get into conspiracy land and say that like there's a few puppet masters who are controlling everything, but I'm just saying if you elect a con man who only cares about money and who literally has a doesn't he have like a golden toilet in his house or something? If this is your God, what kind of world are you going to create? And I'm getting a bit sidetracked here on this topic, but these are just a few of my thoughts the day after the worldwide tariffs have been announced by the United States. And as I said earlier, it's no longer Canada against the US. It seems to be all of us in this potentially sinking boat together. And while it is concerning that we're sinking, it's nice to have some company in here as Canadians. It's nice to not feel as alone as before. What will happen with this boat ride? I don't know.